Daydreaming About Dragons. Hi, my name is Judd Carlman. I'm a gamer and a game designer and a writer and a librarian. Welcome to this podcast about tabletop role-playing games. My first episode that I recorded a few months ago, got lost. I made some mistakes and I deleted some files I shouldn't have deleted, and I destroyed my first episode. So now I am a few dozen episodes in to a show that has no first episode. So here it is. Welcome. Thank you for listening. If you are confused or you want to know what this is about, allow me to tell you. This is a show about tabletop role-playing games. And I'm going to have two sections of the show. It's going to be about 20 minutes long. The first section is going to be about a technique or something that's happening in play at my table and what I'm thinking about it. And I'm often going to ask you questions, and I'm often going to ask for your responses, because I don't want this to be me from a pulpit talking to you, from the audience. I want this to be more of a conversation in the round. And I have found as gaming spreads out and we get new and more diverse voices, I have found that the new voices, that people who come to this with fresh eyes or from backgrounds very different than gaming, have this amazing, they bring new techniques that a lot of us have never even considered. So rather than say, my name is Judd and I've been GMing for 30 years, rather than say that kind of nonsense, I'm going to say, hey, I'm Judd, I game. Do you game? Great. What are you playing? Here's what's working for me. What's working for you? That's the vibe of the show. That's the vibe of the first half of the show. Second half of the show is called Inspiration Goat. And that's where I talk about a piece of media that is inspiring me lately and what it is inspiring me to do at the gaming table, what it makes me think about. So that means that one piece of media might get brought up a couple of times, because one piece of media can inspire me in different ways. There can be different thematic threads that I can pull out of it. Or I might have discovered something new in playing something that's inspired by it. So that's the show. So I'm going to go through it. I'm going to try to re-record that first episode and see if I can capture that lightning in a bottle. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for daydreaming with me. This is Daydreaming About Dragons, Episode 1, asterisk. In my original first episode, I talked about random encounter tables, which is a tool. They are a tool that I'm fascinated by, and I will get back to them. For this, since I get to do a do-over on my first episode, I would like to talk about techniques and at the gaming table, and why I think they're meaningful, and why I think they're worth talking about, and why when something works, I think we need to discuss it, and when something doesn't work, we need to discuss it. This is a really fun hobby. If you're new and you're listening to me, I'm honored that you're here. Thank you for coming. If you are a veteran of 1,000 games, thank you for coming. I appreciate it. I appreciate all of your voices, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you, and I'm looking forward to continuing this conversation. The thing about this hobby that's strange is I feel like this is a skill-based hobby, and I'm going to explain what that means in a little bit, that doesn't think it's a skill-based hobby. Okay? There is a skill to playing these games and making it as much fun as you can for everyone. And I don't mean in a way that the GM is responsible for everyone's fun. That's not what I mean. I mean in a way that everyone is responsible for everyone's fun. We're all responsibility. We all have responsibility. We're all responsible. We all hold responsibility for making the game great. Good games can happen because you have a really amazing GM. Great games happen because everyone puts in effort and everyone is doing fun stuff, and opening up space for other people to do fun stuff. So that's why I like to talk about techniques, because you can get good at this. you can get good at playing these games. And you can be good at being a player. You can be good at being a GM. You can be good at helping people learn new rules. You can be good at learning new rules. All of these things are skills that I think are really valuable to learn. Everybody has stories. A lot of veteran gamers have stories about how this helps them professionally. And it definitely has helped me. When I'm in a small group setting and I'm running some kind of a meeting, I'm on a totally different level because of the hours I've put in at the table with my friends, playing these amazing games. So the reason why I spend this time talking about techniques and things that work for me and things that fascinate me about this game is because after 3 decades, I'm still learning new stuff. I'm still discovering things about the way we share strategies, stories, tactics, all of it, creativity, collaboration, leadership. I'm still learning stuff, and I love that. I don't think I'll ever stop. Not only do I think I'll never stop gaming, although sometimes gaming fades out of your life, and that's a topic for another time. But I don't think I'll ever stop learning. And I love that about this hobby, and I find that that's a thing that rings in through a lot of my hobbies, is that they're kind of difficult, but they're also kind of easy to enjoy. They're basic, but with a lot of complexity buried in them, and they're all kind of skill-based. And that's why I love this stuff, and that's why I have half the show talking about something going on at the table. I'm also gaming a lot lately. As this show started, I began to move back upstate from New York City. And moving upstate has made it much easier for me to game. It's just, I have found it's easier, although there are more people in New York City, of course, than in Ithaca, New York, where I currently am. The density is less intense. And so it's easier to get to places. It's easier to see my friends. I can walk to a friend's house. I can walk to 2 friends' houses from here. Probably more than that, if I felt like taking a good shuffle for an afternoon. So I'm finding I'm gaming a lot, and when I game a lot, I have a lot to talk about, which is nice. I have a lot to discuss. I have a lot of questions. Things come up. So that's why I like talking about the actual play stuff. That's what I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to be talking about techniques, things that work for me at the table, things that don't. And I'm not trying to talk about it as, well, I've been doing this for 30 years. What I'm trying to talk about it as is, hey, these are the questions that are coming up for me, and these are the answers that I think I'm finding, but I'm still learning. I'm inviting you to learn with me, and I'm inviting you to please add your voice to this conversation. And that voice doesn't have to be an email or tweet or an anchor message to me. That voice can be your own podcast or show. That voice can be your own blog post. That voice can be your own game. I'm looking forward to those conversations too. It's all a conversation. It's all part of it. It's all part of it. So, thank you for joining me on my kind of second edition first episode. I appreciate it. First AP, actual play, is going to be what the first couple minutes are always about. It's usually between 5 and 15 minutes, and then we'll get to Inspiration Goat. And you'll know when Inspiration Goat comes because... Thank you, Inspiration Goat. And the media we're going to talk about today is a trilogy of books by N.K. Jemisin called the Broken Earth Trilogy, The Fifth Season, Obelisk Gate, and The Stone Sky. I talked about these on my first episode. I'm going to talk about them on my first episode because I think they are the most astonishing fantasy science fiction stories that I've read maybe in my life. It's definitely in the top 5 or top 3 as a whole. It's a complete trilogy. It has I love the world building in it. I think there are great world building tips in here that you can learn. You're really learning from a master when you read this book. N.K. Jemisin is amazing. And she takes a pretty simple premise. What happens if, how does a society build itself when there are people who can manipulate the earth and the earth is out to kind of kill you? You know, there are earthquakes so often that there are just more apocalypses than can easily be counted. People still try to count them, but it still manages to not be post-apocalyptic in a way that I find tiresome. It deals with power discrepancies and abuse and violence without descending into a grim, dark mess that leaves me feeling filthy. There are things in the book that are just chilling, but I never found myself getting tired and exhausted reading it. And I think that's an amazing testament to what an incredible writer N.K. Jemisin is. I was blessed to see her speak twice while I was in New York City, and it was always amazing. And I wish I could have seen her speak more. So what do we want to learn about gaming through the Broken Earth trilogy? Oh, there are so many things. I think what I'm going to do is think about, and we might come back to this, right? Because there are a lot of different thematic threads to pull. And I think I want to talk about the world building aspect. Because I feel like this, and I've read interviews where N.K. Jemisin says that she had learned a bunch about plate tectonics and geology, and that's what kind of led to the fantasy world. And so I want to think about that and think how you can build a fantasy world off of some simple facts. You know, you can learn a little bit about a subject and then delve a little deeper, and then find yourself building a fantasy world just off that. That's pretty incredible. I love that. You can really build a whole fantasy world by just saying to someone, well, what if the Earth, didn't shield us from the sun's radiation as well as it does? What would have happened to us? And that's not what the Broken Earth does. It's just an example. So you start doing some research about radiation. How much radiation does it throw? What happens? What effect would that have? How much does our atmosphere shield us from it? What could we have done as a species to get away from that? Would we have had to have gone underground? How would that have changed us? What kind of creatures live underground? And you start to ask these delightful questions that can lead to a whole bit of world building. And you can find the answers, and the problem is that you can find answers forever, right? You can keep asking these questions until you're not world building anymore. You're just asking questions and doing research forever. Eventually, you've just got to start getting it down and start doing it and building the world, whether that is through playing the game or writing your supplement or making your game or writing your game book or whatever it is. Whatever your goal is, eventually you just got to stop and do it. Whether it's publish or play, whatever it is, get to it. Don't get too strung up on the questions, but enjoy the journey. And if you're enjoying the journey, ignore me. Go for it. And that I think is the one of the many interesting lessons that I took away from the Broken Earth is how you can take a simple bit of science. Let that science make you curious. Ask more questions. Learn more. And then use that to build a fantasy world. I love that. Man, that's definitely what I'm here for. That's why I do this hobby. And the cool thing about this hobby is you don't just have to, I love writing too, but it's kind of a different muscle, right? It's like a different sport. It's like the difference between swimming and water polo. It's just different. They're both cool. They're both in the water. Similar muscles, but it's very different animal. And I love creating something and writing it and watching someone read it and be affected by that and maybe change the world through that. But I also love the very visceral way of presenting an alien world to my friends with a situation at hand and seeing how they deal with it right there in real time. And that's what this hobby is. It's beautiful. It's so much fun. So that's what I'm taking away from the Broken Earth trilogy. If you've read it and you have some thoughts on it, something you love, maybe your critique, I'd love to hear it. Love to hear it. We'll have more info in the outro. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you coming along for the journey. This is Daydreaming About Dragons, and that was the first episode. If you'd like to support this show, there is a support button in the show notes and on the website. I invite you to push it and share what you can. If you would like to purchase my book, that's another option. Also, a link in the show notes. It's called The Dictionary of Mu. It is a setting supplement for Adept Press's Sorcerer by Ron Edwards. It's a science fantasy take on Mars, and I would love to hear what you think about it and see what you contribute to the dictionary. You can also send me an email at judd.karlman@gmail.com, or you can tweet at me at judd_of_Cryos, an homage to the Sons of Cryos, a podcast I was blessed to be a part of over a decade ago, if you can believe that much time has gone by. Also, another option is to write your own blog post. Make your own show. Do your own podcast. Send me a link. Say, hey, Judd, what you said stirred something up in me. And I made something. I'd love to hear it. Maybe it's not a podcast or a blog. Maybe it's a game. Maybe it's a module. Whatever it is. Maybe it's a series of random encounter tables on DM's Guild. Whatever it is, send me a link. I'll grab it. It'll be part of the conversation on the Wednesday reply shows. I release shows on Sundays and Wednesdays. Sundays are the traditional shows with actual play and inspiration goat. Wednesdays are reply shows, or sometimes I'll throw up a link show. And those are intermittent. Sometimes they come out, sometimes they don't, based on what I've got. I'm not going to force it. I do the reply shows in a totally different numbering system because some people don't like reply shows, so I just want to separate them out from the traditional episodes. If you don't want to listen to that part of the conversation, you don't have to. No pressure. I would love to hear from you. I hope things are going well at your table and you're having fun being surprised by your players. And I'm looking forward to having this conversation with you. Thank you for listening.